So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, chefs from around the world. I'm Ling from World Chef, and once again, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to another webinar by World Chef and Nestle Professional. So, what we have on the table today is a series of webinars where you can learn everything you need to know about coffee, from how it was made to how you can present and use it in your food service. So in today's webinar, we're going to start with the coffee journey. And I would like to welcome three of our experts from Nestle Professional, Wendy, Alessandro, and Crystal. So without further ado, I will leave the stage to our speaker.
Thank you, Lynn. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of our three-part webinar series with World Chefs. I have to say it's a pleasure and honor to be here with you today. My name is Wendy Christensen, and I am the Global Category Lead for Nestle Professional. Joining me today are Alexandra Badassi, Global Category Manager for Nescafé at Nestle Professional, and Christos Sotiris, our Master Barista and Global Category Executive at Nestle Professional. In this first webinar, The Coffee Journey, we're going to be talking to you not only about coffee as a consumable product and one you share with your customers, but also as an agricultural product that drives industry, innovation, and creates connections across the globe. So firstly, what do we mean when we say coffee? For business owners, coffee is a means of satisfying the customers, creating an experience either as a primary or secondary revenue stream. And for those that grow and produce coffee, it's an agricultural product and their central means of producing an income. But did you know there are an estimated 25 million coffee farms across the world, and more than 125 million people depend on coffee for their livelihoods? But for consumers, coffee is a beverage that is either consumed as part of a daily ritual, a social interaction, or a hospitality experience. Consumer interaction with coffee is mainly in the selection of the medium, how they choose the form that it's served. You know, for example, a filter or an espresso, or what type of milk that they use. For me personally, my form is always an espresso. And coffee is global and one of the world's most valuable and traded natural commodities. It is enjoyed by a significant portion of the population in most countries across the globe. But again, did you know coffee is a fruit? There are coffee cherries on the trees, which contain the seeds. But how we grow, process, and use these seeds will be explored later in more details with Christos, our master barista. So for now, I'll be discussing the various reasons why we drink coffee, as well as the history of one of the world's most popular drinks. So why do we drink coffee? Well, for a start, we all are different. So coffee can represent different things, which influences how and where it is consumed. Coffee is a beverage that provides a sense of pleasure. When we drink it, we can experience different emotions with the expectation of enjoyment and fulfillment. And coffee is used across the world as a source of energy and as part of a ritual. You know, for example, like the preparation for work in the morning or for recreation. I know I need my coffee first thing in the morning to kickstart my day. We also drink coffee for our well-being, whether it's consumed for health benefits or for pleasure. Coffee provides consumers with a sense of well-being in their personal care. And of course, we drink it for refreshment. Coffee provides a range of experiences and connections, an opportunity to take a pause from the rhythm of a really hectic day. As we consume it, it's a way to connect or disconnect, and we provide the refreshment and satisfaction while we're doing it. But coffee is big business. The global coffee industry is worth over $100 billion, with more than 400 billion cups consumed every year. And consumer value of that coffee, that's the consumer spend annually, is worth over $400 billion. The sale and purchasing of coffee is regulated through various markets, the largest being the International Coffee Exchange, or the ICE, and coffee future prices are also known in the industry as C price. So, okay, we've had a look at why we drink coffee. So now let's have a look at how it all started. So coffee originated in Ethiopia, with the legend being that the goat herder named Kaldi observed his goats eating the coffee cherries and being full of energy. He shared his disciple monastery, who began harvesting the cherries as a fruit. And eventually they roasted these seeds and noticed the aromas, which led them to brewing it as a drink. And by the 15th century, coffee trade and cultivation had spread to what is known as modern-day Yemen. And from there, the seeds were transported to India, Bourbon, now known as the Reunion in France, Madagascar, and other African countries. By the 17th century, coffee has become really popular in Europe. The introduction of coffee houses and the penny universities in major European cities saw the divergence of intellectualism with coffee consumption. And by the early 1700s, coffee seeds were transported by the French to Central America. Now, coffee grows in nearly all Central and South American countries and is a major export to other multiple countries. So let's bring all this up to date, and what does it look like in the 21st century? So who is growing coffee? Well, coffee is grown in approximately 70 countries across the world, with the largest producing countries being Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia. It provides income to millions of families and is the major export for many countries in the Americas and Africa. And coffee farmers typically work either as individuals or family groups, and sometimes with large cooperatives. Some have their own facilities to prepare their coffee for export, whereas others sell their coffee to these cooperatives or mills for the completion. As consumption of coffee has increased, though, traceability and sustainability have become some of the most important aspects of coffee sourcing. And for this reason, certifications are becoming much more important. Today, consumers are demanding and becoming more interested in ethically sourced coffee. So certifications are playing a central role in coffee production. There are a variety of different certifications used for coffee, many of which I'm sure you know, such as the Rainforest Alliance Fair Trade and UTZ. However, changes in the industry in the last 20 years have resulted in more traceability, which is a good thing, focus on sustainability, and community engagement. At Nestlé Professional, we have used blockchain technology as part of our coffee sourcing practices in order to provide more transparent and traceable coffees. Okay, so we've seen that coffee has a rich history. We know that it's got a global presence, and that ethical practices are central to how it is grown, sourced, and consumed. But of course, the journey of coffee ends with the consumer and their cup. Knowing who drinks coffee and why is central to understanding coffee as a product and a unique proposition. Currently, 9 out of 10 countries that consume the most coffee per capita are located in Europe, and the top 3 being in Finland, Norway, and Iceland. But how and when coffee is consumed depends on local culture, the context in why it is being consumed, and access or convenience of the coffee. For example, in some cultures, coffee is a break or a pause, such as the fika in Sweden. In others, it is a social gathering taken as an opportunity to meet and connect. But for many, it is an individual experience, a chance to disconnect and take some time for oneself. In restaurants and in dining, coffee is consumed quite often as a complement to the food offering. So coffee plays a different role in various hospitality businesses. It adds value to the overall proposition and is a way to entice and inspire and engage with consumers. In modern specialty coffee shops, coffee plays a central role and is the most important product. But in many other businesses, coffee may play a complementary role to the other products. It's still offered as part of a service. So for consumers and for businesses, coffee presents a range of different opportunities. And these include connection, impression, revenue, and the uniqueness as a product and beverage. So if we look at connection, coffee consumption is a social opportunity for many drinkers, and it is often consumed at gatherings. It offers a chance for people to come together, to socialize and to connect. It is used as a meeting point or congregation for families, for workers, and for friends to come together. Coffee gives emotional connection to self with others. And it also provides the emotional connection and experience linked back to your venue and the hospitality that you're offering. So from an impression perspective, it is a welcome to the guests and can be the first impression of many venues. You know, do they have coffee? What kind of coffee are they offering? It is also a lasting impression, particularly for restaurants and hotels and venues that typically focus more on food. Coffee is often the last item consumed in these venues at the end of a dining experience, for example. So will actually leave a lasting impression on the guests and patrons that visit. And if we look at the revenue, coffee is a central revenue source for many hospitality businesses. Even if the margins from sale of coffee aren't as large as food or other drink items, quality coffee service attracts and inspires repeat customers. Revenue source is not just as a beverage, but it can also be as retail item, for example. So you can go on and sell the sale of beans and equipment and merchandise, as well as add extra revenue through training, all linked back to the coffee service. So coffee can be more than just a beverage. In cafes, bars, restaurants, hotels, and other hospitality venues, coffee is the primary beverage, but increased customer knowledge and education is allowing coffee to be used as a more diverse product. Coffee should not be the afterthought to your service offer, but a central and primary product for both beverage form and as an ingredient. So far we've looked at coffee in the context of the global product, with a rich history and range of ways in which it is shared, consumed, and considered. However, the future use and elevated quality of coffee comes largely from understanding how and why coffee is grown and prepared at its origin. And for the next part in our webinar, we will be hearing from Christos Sotiris, the Master Barista and Category Executive at Nestlé Professional, who will be speaking about coffee growing regions or origins of coffee, including where it is grown, how it is grown and processed, and what the steps in the cultivation and preparation of coffee mean for those who prepare and for those who consume it. So I'd now like to hand over to Christos.
Thank you, Wendy, for the introduction, and to everyone for being here today. My name is Christos Sotiros, and since 2016, I have been working with Nestlé, building on coffee knowledge and people who work inside and outside of the company. As part of this work, I help people to understand where coffee is grown and how it is created in order to enhance coffee service and quality. So today I would like to talk to you a bit about the origins of the coffee, where it grows and why, what are the different species, varieties, and how growing conditions will impact the final product. So we will be looking together at coffee as an agricultural product, different tree species and farming, and how post-harvest process develop flavor and influences the end cup profile, of course. Let's start our journey speaking about what coffee is exactly. When we speak about coffee, we often refer to its flavors and complexities as a finished product, as a cup. For example, it is strong, robust, fully bodied, and has certain flavor notes and different ways in which it is roasted. However, all of these qualities are not just the results of what we do behind a coffee machine, but more like Wendy noted, coffee is a fruit, and depending on the type of coffee, where it is grown, how it is separated, will greatly influence the experience our customers have, both as a beverage and an ingredient for other uses. So where does coffee grow? Coffee is predominantly grown in Africa, Central and South America, Southern Asia, and Asia Pacific, and some parts of the Middle East. In the coffee world, when we speak about the places that the coffee is grown, we usually refer to it as the origin of the coffee. The overall growing conditions at the origin will impact how coffee grows, its quality, and expression of different flavors. So looking at these countries as a belt, we see that most of the coffee trees require a warm semi-tropical climate in order to grow. And that's why we define this coffee belt between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Different species and varieties grown at different altitude and degrees of shade. Arabica usually between 800 and 2300 meters above the sea level, when Robusta grows at lower altitude between 600 meters and 1500 meters above the sea level. The altitude has a big impact on a caffeine level as well of coffee as part of their defense mechanism. The higher the coffee grows, the less the caffeine levels are. But also coffee flavors and characteristics are highly affected by environment and what we call the terroir. The coffea flowering plant, otherwise known as coffee, has more than 120 known species so far. There are several main species of coffee used of the majority of the world's production and consumption. However, new coffees are also discovered and created all the time. The most commonly known and consumed species of Coffea family are Arabica and Robusta. Robusta trees tend to grow much faster at lower altitudes and also produce larger beans with higher caffeine content. When compared to Arabica, Robusta coffee typically has also higher bitterness in the cup. Arabica trees typically grow slower than Robusta at higher altitudes. They have smaller beans and have a lower caffeine content. Arabica makes about 60% of the total coffee production and is favored for its complexity, high quality, and wide variety of flavor profiles. Let's deep dive a little bit more on the species and see what's going on. When we refer to a coffee, we often talk about its variety as well, which is the particular strain of coffee within a particular species. Within these different species of coffees, there are dozens of different varieties as well. Many are naturally occurring and are results of natural evolutions of the trees by traveling from one part of the earth to the other, or purposeful crossbreeding between different varieties. This is typically done in order to create disease-resistant strains, to improve production volume, and to heighten quality. As Wendy explained earlier, coffee beans are actually seeds. These seeds are contained within a fruit, which we call a coffee cherry, and as you can see, they actually look like a cherry. Each cherry typically contains 2 seeds. Some contain only a single seed, which we refer to as a pea berry due to its round shape. The final seeds of these cherries are referred to as green beans, which are then roasted and extracted with different brewing methods. Most of these cherries are green in color as they grow, and they either turn red, usually, or orange, yellow, or even purple at some points when they mature, depending on the different varieties. As a result, the size, the shape, the density, and growth of green beans varies depending on the species, varietal, pruning methods, and growing conditions in each country. What are the optimum growing conditions, though, for the Coffea trees? Most of the Arabica coffee plants are shade plants and grow best in shaded conditions out of direct sunlight. Though this is not always the case, when in some countries, such as Brazil, coffee trees are often grown in full sun. The cherries are harvested when ripe by carefully picking from the tree without damaging the tree. And this is done with a variety of methods, including hand picking, stripping, and for larger plantations with mechanical picking machines. Looking at the coffee cherry anatomy, coffee cherries are made up several layers, which contain sugars and nutrients that have been collected during growth and maturation. When coffee is harvested, coffee producers and their works must undergo several steps of washing, fermentation, pulping, and drying to influence the qualities in the final cup. The methods they use to convert coffee seeds within a cherry to green beans ready for roasting is widely referred to as processing. And looking at the processing involves the removal of the fruit, layers, and membranes that surround the coffee seeds. There are a number of different ways to process the coffee cherries to prepare them for roasting, and we choose the right one depending on what we want to highlight on each of these coffee varieties. These include wash process, natural process, honey process, and semi-wash process. Looking at the 3 main processing methods and going to their differences and the influence to the cup, we see that natural processing involves the fermentation and drying of coffee when it's still within the cherry. The cherries are picked from the trees and placed under the sun to dry. This allows the coffee seeds to absorb the fruit qualities from the surrounding fruit, resulting in a sweet, fruit-forward, and fully bodied coffee. When in wash processing, the fruit is removed from its skin. The coffee is then washed, fermented, washed again, then laid out to dry under the sun or shade. And this process helps to highlight delicate flavor, including florals and stone fruit characteristics, and can also help to enhance acidity in the coffee. The third one is called honey processing, and it's something in between natural or a combination of natural and wash processing method. The fruit is mostly removed, then laid out to dry with the mucilage layer intact, and the sweetness from this layer is transferred into the coffee bean, resulting in high sweetness and fully bodied flavors. There are also a number of more recent experimental methods of processing involving anaerobic fermentation and wine-making techniques, although this is not yet common in all producing countries, rather than it is applied in smaller microlots. Why all these steps and processing techniques are important for the end cup? As we've seen, processing influences the end cup and has a major impact on the flavor of the coffee. If we know exactly what our coffee is grown, where coffee is grown, the type of varietal and how it was processed, then we have an idea of how it will taste in the end cup. Having knowledge of processing enables hospitality professionals to make more informed decisions when it comes to preparing and using coffee as a beverage and ingredient, but also better communication and selling stories towards the consumers. But what's next in this bean to cup journey when we take the coffees out of the farms? So far, we have heard about coffee as a fruit and how it is developed into green coffee. However, there are more steps, critical ones, involved before we can use it. The coffee we know and serve to customer is always roasted. But why do we roast coffee? We roast coffee because green or unroasted coffee has little aromas and is very difficult to dissolve. The aroma does have a grassy flavor and does not smell at all like the nice aromas from roasted coffee that we're used to. Roasting coffee makes it more porous and reduces density, allowing it to dissolve in hot water. So this way we can deliver the flavors to the end cup. The roasting process also develops the aromas and the flavors of the coffee beans, giving the qualities we all love and enjoy in our cups every day. The way that beans are managed when entering the roasting chamber, the length and extent to which the coffee is roasted is referred to as the roasting profile or the roast level. Different flavors and aromas are highlighted by roasting, and different profiles will affect how much they are highlighted in the final cup. It is very important to align roasting profile with brewing technique. Using an espresso roast for a filter coffee will result in heavy, muted flavors. Likewise, making an espresso with a lighter filter roast will usually result in a more acidic, sour, and bitter notes. This is important when preparing coffee, either as a beverage or an ingredient. The processing, the roast, and the method you use to prepare the coffee will all influence the end cup, and that's the most important part to understand. With this knowledge, we can approach coffee as a standard ingredient that always tastes the same, but as a specific product with unique characteristics. And when we talk about wine, according to the grape varietal, the region and country, and when it was grown, and the terroir, and the influence of all these processes in the flavor, why do not the same for coffee? Knowledge of different origins and coffees will allow you to pick single origins and blends that suit your customer preferences. This knowledge is also powerful when serving your customers, as you use coffee as a beverage or as an ingredient in cocktails, food, and other consumables. All of this complexity and the diversity of the coffee in different stages is complemented by experts' innovation spirit and presented to the coffee competitions every year. For the last 20 years, there have been a number of coffee competitions conducted around the world in different categories, such as barista, brewer's cup, latte art, but also coffee in good spirits, which is a cocktail competition in combination with coffee. Baristas from across the world, they compete in their national competitions, and the winners represent their countries at the world stage. these competitions represent some of the most innovative and modern ways to prepare and use coffee, and often draw inspiration from the culinary world. Several world champions have used methods from winemaking and Michelin-star restaurants to create unique drinks and signature beverages. Likewise, several champions have used their knowledge of coffee to enhance their service of other products, including cocktails and fine dining. So after looking at all this, the question is, where we go next? As we will see from our final presenter today, there are countless ways in which coffee can and it is served. As service standards and knowledge in coffee develops, there are far more opportunities to use coffee in a variety of ways, especially in the culinary world. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Alessandro Bottazzi, the Global Category Manager for Nescafé and Nestlé Professional.
Thank you, Christos, and hello, everyone. So we are now at approaching the third part of the webinar. We've heard a lot about where coffee comes from, and as well as how it's created, sold, and shared across the world. Today, I would like to talk about how coffee service is changing, and as well as the opportunities that we have to use coffee as a signature item and ingredient in your service. So let's start from how coffee is consumed. When we speak about coffee as a beverage, there are a number of ways in which it's consumed. As Christian mentioned before, there are different ways in which coffee is roasted, and there is a correlation between the type of extraction and preparation that you want to do and the type of roasting. Today, we will explore the three main ways in which coffee is consumed: espresso, the filter extraction, and the soluble. And the popularity of different ways to consume vary accordingly to culture, to country, but maybe also to the type of out-of-home outlet that you are running. Let's start from the espresso. Espresso is the most popular coffee beverage in Europe. And as extraction, espresso is prepared by using an espresso machine and require the use of pressure through compacted grounded coffee. This pressure and the high temperature used by the coffee machine are making the extraction time short and efficient, and the end cup, as you all know, results a drink that is strong, flavorful with the crema. This is include the espresso beverage in general are including the black espresso, as we know, but also the espresso with milk or with water. So let me mention the ristretto, the Americano, the latte, the flat white, or the cappuccino coming out from the espresso as a base. Although most espresso based are served hot, the iced and chilled espresso beverage are increasing in popularity. Now we're moving to the other very popular type of drinking coffee, that's the filter coffee. So filter methods, on the other hand, if you compare to espresso, they're using longer and more gentle application of water and heat, and including gravity and immersion methods. And the result beverages coming out from the filter is lighter, more delicate, and less intense than coffee made with an espresso machine. And here there are different filter methods. I can mention the pour-over methods, different, like V60, like Chemex. We have AeroPress, we have French press, or even the drip coffee machine. And these methods, if you are talking about globally, they are mostly popular in Asia, like the big country, China, Korea, Japan, in general in Asia, where they come from the tea culture, and this filter is more similar to an infusion. Therefore, this is very spread in this type of regions. But it's not only Asia. Drip coffee machines are also among the most popular ways to consume coffee in North America. So let me then, after I've presented you the two more common ways to consume coffee, also to talk about the changes that has been seen in the industry in the last few years. So if you look at the coffee service has drastically changed over the years, but it's not only a change of service, coffee, the drink itself, changed from being a morning energy beverage to a widely appreciated and more expensive product. A beverages that the consumer are interested in and want to know more about. And here the barista, the emergence of barista is playing a key role. The barista is the expert of coffee, is the one that has the knowledge and the skills of coffee and is able to spread with consumers. So let's see now how can we represent the evolution of coffee in the years. So we call it waves. Waves are the stages to which coffee preparation, coffee consumption, service, and consumer interaction has changed over the time. We have 4+ waves, and let's start from the first waves. The first wave is mid-last century, is where coffee became more accessible thanks to two biggest innovations. One is the soluble coffee that was invented in 1938, and the other one was the vacuum system for the packaging of the product of the ground coffee for the filter application. So this is not an era in which we have very big differentiation between one coffee or the other, because the coffee is functional. As we've spoken before, is a functional beverage, is an energy boost for the morning. So it's drunk primarily in the morning, and there are not so many options available for the consumer. So no differentiation of flavor, no interest and focus on the origins. It was just a functional beverage. And the consumption was primarily at home consumption. But let's get more excited moving to the next wave. This is in the 90s, in where coffee became more recognized as a standalone beverage. And this is the emergence of the coffee chain. And given that coffee became part of a lifestyle, it was not only a beverage, but it was a social moment to share with friends, with other people. And the out of home is starting to play a key role in the evolution of coffee. The differentiation between the species start to become more widespread. People started to know about Robusta and Arabica, and the differentiation started to be on the market quite widespread. And in terms of way of drinking, also there was the merge of the takeaway consumption that is still going in these days. So if I have to say and to find a word for the second wave, if the first wave was tradition, the second wave was experience. So coffee is starting to become an experience. Let's move then to the very excited third wave. This is the beginning of this century. This is the era in where the coffee is started to become at the center, because it's the era of the excellence of coffee, thanks to the barista that is becoming the hero and is becoming the owner of the knowledge that is going to spread to the consumer. So the storytelling is playing a key role here in the coffee service. It's not just about serving a cup of coffee, but the barista is really the one that is spreading the knowledge, and with the storytelling is spreading the love, the passion, and the interest in coffee. Here, the barista is experiment new type or bringing on the cafeterias new brewing methods or alternative brewing methods. Is not just about espresso, but is about espresso, is about V60, other filter type of extraction. So the good point of here is the increasing of what we call specialty coffee. So coffee, very specialized, very high quality with different type of preparation. But let's move then on the fourth wave of coffee, in which this is the current days. This wave is focused more on the science behind coffee, the business of coffee. there are a lot of cafeterias, a lot of venues that are starting to doing the in-house coffee roasting. Thank you to the technology available in the market. Is this wave about the science and the miserable result in coffee. Experimentation and science are for me the keywords as a takeaway of this wave. Someone is saying that we are moving to the fifth wave and more. So let's say the fourth and more wave and plus wave that we see in the market. So we have shown to you how we frame the different era of the coffee, the different evolution. Now I think there is a pool. I want to know from you, what wave of coffee are you? I don't have a, sorry.
No, I just, sorry to interrupt. I just want to inform our audience that the poll is now up on the screen, and the questions are starting to receive some answers. So we are good.
Okay, let's you read on the pool. I'm giving you some time. I'm not saying what wave I'm myself. Okay, so I think honestly, I'm drinking all type of coffee. My favorite beverage is espresso, but I think there is no a single answer to what wave are you. I think there are elements of all the waves in the different style with which coffee is served today. Although coffee service has changed over time and not all the venues that serve coffee have adapted to the evolution of coffee. And in order to progress with quality, I think we need to, coffee need to be treated as a special and important product. Even if it's not central to your menu, consumers are becoming more and more expert in coffee and more demanding when are going out of home. So let's move now on looking at the trend and on the consumer. But before, let's see about what the consumer know about coffee. They're more informed, they're making more informed choice about coffee in general. They know what they can add to coffee in terms of what milk, what alternatives to milk, what sweetening products, and the average consumer has a general understanding of where coffee comes from, how is it made, what they like about coffee, what are the dislike in the various type of coffee. We also see in the market and on the packaging, all the flavor notes, the description, the origins, the roasting type are up there. So there is an increased demand on information, and the consumer are catching up on this information. But it's not a trend. There is also a must-have in the market that is a real story on sustainability. So sustainability, as Wendy said before, is a must-have in the market and certification on the product, and is really central to the coffee they consume. In terms of trend, we see there are many reasons why consumers seek out coffee. They are choosing coffee for the flavor, the different flavor intensity, the flavor coming from the different origins or the different type of extraction. But they're also choosing coffee for the health benefit. And it seems contradictory, but consumers are looking for health benefit at the same time, but also indulgence product coming out of coffee. This is because we have different type of consumer, or maybe, and also because we have the same consumer drink coffee in the different time of the day, and the needs are pretty different. There is a clear emergence of the plant-based milk, so the alternative to the dairy milk, so as a healthy alternative. And this category is growing very fast, is doubling the figures that we have today in the next 4 years. If you see US, but it's not only US, it's quite spread type of trend that we see in the market. And there are also other nutritional benefits that consumers are expecting out from the cold coffee. And this leads to a conclusion that we have different consumer, we have different needs, and we need to address the different type of needs and reflect this in our coffee menu. And if you see, consumers are aware of the different options that are on the market. The coffee industry has improved the knowledge and the service through each wave. And the result is from a standardized menu we're used to see before to a more engaging, specific, and very descriptive menu that we see in the market. The menu is the unique proposition and the prestige of your service. I want to give you a summarizing what I've said before, few ideas in how to enhance your coffee menu, how to put emphasis on the quality that you are serving in your product, in your coffee. I would like to see you to romance the language of your menu, of your coffee. You are doing great for food and for wine. Why don't you do that for coffee as well? The other point is integrating the coffee menu, put in your general menu, because it's part of your proposition, is a key part of your proposition. You need to offer diversity in the coffee because there is no coffee that fits all the needs of the consumer. Then I suggest you to experiment, leverage on your creativity, and share your passion and show the consumer why this coffee has been selected and served for you as consumer. Then, I mean, just to add on what Chris said before, we hope you gained the knowledge today of the different type of coffee, about the origins, and why this different type of coffee matters for your hospitality a day-by-day activity. It's not about just being more sweet or more bitter than others. We want to transfer the complexity and the richness of the coffee. And if you see, coffee is much more complex than wine. And there are more than 800 different aromatic flavors and components in coffee. And by leveraging these flavors, coffee can be used as a complex component of food service. So then I would like, I open the door to the different application of coffee in the hospitality. And we are ending up with this webinar 1, that is a part of 3 webinars on coffee. And I'm really glad to invite you to the second and third webinar. The second one will take place the 16th of November. And we will talk about coffee. How is it based on the complexity? How can you use it to make coffee more attractive in hospitality? Coffee is a specialized item. You can use it for food pairing, coffee cocktail, and make a lot of experience out of the coffee. So join us the 16th of November for the second part. I'm ending to the end. So on behalf of the team, on Wendy, on Chris, and myself, I want to thank you for the participation, and I would like to open the door to your questions.
Hello, everyone. So just back to a little bit. If you want to submit your questions to our experts, please use the Q&A box. That way it's easier for you, for us to track and make sure that all the questions are addressed. And thank you so much also for submitting your answer to the poll. I can see that 74% of our live audience have already sent in their answer. So Wendy, Crystal, Alessandro, do you want me to share the result of the poll?
Yes, please.
Okay, so drum roll. And yes, so as you can see on screen, we have asked you 2 questions. The first one, what coffee wave best describe your wave of serving coffee? So I can see that the majority of the audience are serving the coffee in third wave style, coffee excellence, 41%. Second wave, coffee shop, and fourth wave, the silent coffee, accounts for the same percentage of 22%. And last but not least, 50% of the audience are serving coffee in traditional way. Then come to the second question, what coffee are you serving in your venue? You have 48% of the people who are serving Arabica 100%, 13% are serving Robusta 100%, 50%. The highest, half of our audience are serving blend coffee, and 19% are serving single origin coffee. So thank you so much. And we'll be receiving some answer from the expert for your questions.
Thank you. Really interesting results there. 50% enjoy the blends. So it's interesting and actually in line with what we would expect. So it's good to see. So we're now going to take some of the questions. We're going to try and do it between the 3 of us. So I think I'm going to let Christos start answering some of the more coffee focused questions.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. I will take these 2 questions and combine the answer for both of them about what is the fruit flesh surrounding the seed is used for, and about the outer skin and pulp, if they're edible. So the fruit flesh is used during the processing method, basically as the sugars to drive the fermentation in these processes to develop the flavor complexity of the beans. And as for the outer skin, in cases that coffee is high quality, the outer skins are dried and prepared as a tea beverage, which is known as cascara. And otherwise, if they're lower quality or completely dried, they usually go back to farms as a natural fertilizer for the farms. And also getting the question about the coffee in savory application, this will be pretty much our topic for the second webinar, using different coffee formats as an ingredient for cooking savory applications along with our self manual. The next one is, where is coffee from on what Nescafe is offering? We're sourcing coffees from all coffee producing countries around the world, and we either offer it as a single origin, such as single origins from Colombia, or Peru or Brazil, or as part of our blends, where we mix the different origins and different coffees together to balance flavor profile or create a new flavor profile for our products. And another question regarding the other species about, I see some Liberica and other species. Yes, we said it's more than 120 identified already, but imagine that Liberica is only the 2% of the global coffee production, and all the other species are even less than that. And in most of the cases, they're not produced in such quantities to manage to create or launch a coffee SKU, or at lower qualities as well. So they usually consumed within these producing countries at the local, from the locals, basically. And I'm taking another question about what is the difference between latte and cappuccino. The difference is on the recipe of the beverage, and it has to do with the ratio between milk and coffee. The latte has more milk compared to coffee, and it's also in the quality of the steamed milk. We use equal parts of foam and milk for cappuccino, and we use 1/4 of foam and 3/4 of steamed milk for a latte beverage. should I hand it over to you guys? You have any questions to answer?
Question about it.
Yeah, there is a question about our favorite coffee. What is the favorite coffee of the presenter? So we start, maybe Chris, you can start.
Yeah, I'm more fan of the hot coffees, and I really like drinking filter coffee in the morning and espresso coffee after lunch or during the day. But I'm not sure if I'm the best one to answer this, because I do 7 or 8 cups of coffee per day, so I need to taste different coffees during the day. But I would go for filter coffee if I had to choose one.
From what origin?
I'm a fan of acidities and fruity notes, so I would choose either Ethiopia or some good coffees from Panama.
Great. So Wendy, you?
So for me, it has to be a double espresso in the morning. And I have to say, time is of the essence. So I do tend to default to the Nespresso capsule first thing in the morning. So I'm an Ethiopian fan. But then mid-morning or lunchtime, definitely switch to filter coffee. And again, I like the milder coffee, so I tend to stick with my South African type coffees.
Okay.
And for you, Alessandro?
For me, I'm Italian, but I have to say I drink all type of coffee. I start my day, my first cup is soluble coffee, long one. Then for sure an espresso, and my favorite espresso is Colombian origin, because I visit the farmers there, and maybe the experience played a role in becoming my favorite coffee.
Okay, and I think there's been a question here on how much coffee does Nestle purchase. I can say we as a group, Nestle Group, we 900,000 tons of green coffee every year. And we buy from all, as Christos has already said, we buy from many of the different regions, but a lot of our coffee comes from Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Mexico, Indonesia, so Ethiopia. So yes, we purchase quite a lot. We're just running down through the questions. There's lots of questions coming in. One here for you, Christos. Does water temperature affect the flavor of coffee?
Yes, actually it does. It affects it's one of the key extraction parameters and brewing parameters. And just to give you an idea, the higher the temperature is that we're using to extract coffee, the more we increase the extraction. So that means more intense flavor and more intense body to the cup. So it has a massive impact on the end cup profile. And we really need to manage not only the temperature of the water, but also the quality of the water. The minerals that the water contains are highly affect the end cup flavor profile as well.
Okay, and I see another question here. And again, as our resident global barista, Christos, it might come back to you, but question or statement, why a barista professional is not recognized at an international level? So the barista revolution, I think you're leading this as well for us at Nestle.
Yeah, so, but I think as also Alessandro explained during the presentation, after the third wave, we had the creation of this barista profession, and it's increasing year after year. So I think it's becoming very famous as an identity to be a barista, and it is also becoming more high demands in terms of skills needed. And how much do you study, I would say, behind just being a barista. And again, connecting to the new type of services offering within a hotel, restaurant, cafeteria, whatever, it's the role of the barista is upgraded as well. And it's not only to prepare a good cup of coffee, but also to well communicate the products, interact with the consumers, and customize the beverage according to consumer preferences. He or she is the ambassador of the product on the business, and it's the one who's interacting directly with consumers. So it's it's a pretty high advanced role, I would say, these days.
Okay, and I see another question regarding the sustainability. So from our side, from Nestle and Nestle Professionals perspective, we see this as is significant. The long-term social and environmental stability of sustainability in the coffee sector is critical. We have initiatives that improve the livelihoods of coffee farmers and communities to preserve the natural environment. And this includes things like farmer training programs and renewing coffee plantations, among many of the other activities that are out there. We also partner with many of the big groups like C4 for Coffee and Rainforest Alliance. So yes, this is really important, and we take it very seriously.
And let me take the question about the Turkish coffee preparation using boiling, and how does this affect the taste? Coffee preparation using an ibrick and this Turkish coffee technique is considered to be as a unique brewing method of coffee. So any parameters that are included in this brewing technique, such as grinding size, water temperature, water heat transfer to the ibrick, and everything will affect the coffee taste. But just have in mind that it is considered as a fast brewing technique, as the coffee is basically brewed after the water temperature reaches the 60 degrees. So between 60 degrees and 98, 99, just before boiling, where we would serve the coffee in the cup, we have a quite fast brewing time. So yeah, usually that's why these coffees are prepared in small cups, because also the coffee particles remain at the bottom of the cup and they keep on being in contact with the water and keep on extracting. And that's why it's not proposed to prepare big cups with using this Turkish coffee technique.
Yeah, there are two questions on the trends that I want to pick. So one is about India, why the consumption of India are so low. And the other one is from Italy, how Italy is reacting to the waves. So I'm picking two countries where very different from one to each other. So I think in India, like all Asia, where the tea culture is very strong, the coffee entered in a later stage. But if I can say, I mean, we see China, we see all Asia, where coffee is going very fast, and though the new trends are coming from there. So I think also India will catch up quite soon on coffee, and there are also origin of coffee coming from India, very good one. So I think this will go very fast in the next few years, just my feeling. And if I take a more traditional country like Italy, it's very traditional on espresso, but I see, as I said in during my speech before, there are a lot of elements that I see in the market of premiumization. Even if we are not, you cannot say we are third or fourth wave. Premiumization is on the market, and consumers are really starting to know more about coffee, and they want to know more, and are ready to do a step change in the market. So I think we expect also a premiumization in terms of coffee shop. That's something that need to come in the market.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. And I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. So will coffee shop culture survive the post-pandemic? Yes, for sure, we believe it will. But of course, you know, things will not go back to how they were. We are constantly moving and moving forward, and coffee shops will be moving forward as well. And we see this in terms of the emergence of digitalization coming into the coffee business, and coffees being bought and subscribed online. So being able to sell your coffee not only is coffee to go, coffee to consume inside your cafe, but also through a digital platform will be the future. And that question was linked to COVID. And then there's another one around what has Nestle done to help during the COVID-19 with the coffee farmers? And of course, with all of it, our first priority was to ensure that employees and partners and communities were safe. So making sure that we operated in a healthy and safe environment was critical. So we promoted the social distancing and hygiene measures. We've also launched initiatives that helped our coffee shops with making sure these hygiene factors were in place. So a really important point coming out post-COVID.
Yeah, and if we have more time for a last question, what is the optimum expiration time for green beans, and then how long before it expires after roasting? So for green beans, we always check the moisture level. That's the most important, the moisture level and the density. And as soon as it's between 10 and 12%, the green beans are ready for roast. If it drops down below 10, then this is what we consider as an expired green coffee. And after roasting, it really depends on the roast level. So the more roasted the coffee is, the more days needs to be degassed in order to release the pleasant flavor profile and the optimum aromas. And it stays fresher for a longer time. But again, after roasting expiration, it really depends on the ways of packaging and how do we protect the coffee from moisture, strong odors, and oxygen after the roasting process.
Hey, I think we've come to the end. We've got many more questions. We would be here all day if we answered them all. We'll try and type some of the answers up, but thank you very much for joining us. And we really look forward to meeting up with you all again at our next webinar. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for attending. Thank you very much.
On behalf of WorldChef and also all the audience members that are with us today, thank you so much to Nestle professionals and our expert, Wendy, Crystal, and Alessandro for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to learn so many things about coffee, and very much looking forward to the second webinar. Just a little bit about how you can receive the webinar recording as well as the handout. It will be sent to the emails that you use to register for the sessions, as well as the link to register for the second one. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join us today, and I wish you a great day or evening or afternoon ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.